Hello everybody, and welcome to a new kind of video. So I'm recording this on June 25th, which should be just a few days removed from the nominations for the Hollywood Critics Association Mid-Season Awards. So this is the first quote-unquote real award show. Obviously, like the Gothams are considered the first proper award show in the beginning of that nomination season, but this is like a little moment halfway through the year to get us excited for potential awards. And obviously, the HCA has a real award show when it's actually time to have an award show. And so this is obviously not something that you have to take seriously. This is not like a serious Oscar precursor or something. This is really just for fun. But I decided to take the opportunity to sort of practice my Oscar expert-iness and sort of try to do a little bit of predicting to see what I think could get nominated by this group. Now, 2024 is shaping up to be not the most competitive year. Because of the SAG strikes, there were a lot of movies that got delayed, and so it's not looking like a super stacked year. There's certainly good stuff, but just looking at the first half of the year, there's not a ton of stuff that is like, oh, that's gonna be big. That's gonna be nominated at the end of the year. Now, and it can change from year to year. 2022 was a big year because we had Everything Everywhere and Elvis and Top Gun Maverick, three Best Picture nominees that all came out in the first half of the year. But that's not always the case. In 2021, there were no Best Picture nominees that came out in the first half of the year. And then last year, we had Past Lives as the one Best Picture nominee from the first half, although it didn't actually win Best Picture at this guild, it lost to Spider-Verse. So, that should give you a little bit of an idea of what we're doing. I'm going to do this a little bit differently than my Oscar prediction videos. As I mentioned in the last one, I want to sort of try to experiment with starting at Best Picture and working my way down. And we'll see if that format feels a little bit different. So starting off with Best Picture, no points for guessing what's going to win at the HCA Midseason Awards this year, because Dune Part 2 is by far and away the frontrunner. It is the movie of the first half of the year. And I will say, I'm going to make a bold claim now. I think that Dune Part 2 will be the only movie from the first half of the year to get a Best Picture nomination when all is said and done. I think we would have to be looking at a really, really weak year for anything else to get on. Now, I do think a distant number 2 is Challengers, which has a lot of praise going for it. I do think it should be solidly in here, at least as one of the most talked about movies of the first half. And then it's when it starts to get tricky. So I have Furiosa at number 3. Even though it wasn't a huge box office success and it's sort of being branded a failure, I do think it should get a little bit of... I think it should get something here. And Inside Out 2, this guild is kinder to animated films than most, so I think that should be safe to get on here. And after that, it starts to get tricky. So I think Hitman should have the reviews to get on. But number 6, I have I Saw the TV Glow. And this might be a case of an indie being a little too small to get the recognition, but everyone who's seen it says it's amazing. So I am going to have it on. Civil War was certainly one of the most talked about movies of the first half, albeit not for great reasons. Some people loved it, some people didn't, but I do think all that talk did help get eyes on it. And these last two slots are where it gets really tricky. I almost didn't have Kinds of Kindness in, but looking at the rest of the categories, I think it's wise to predict it to get on for a couple of places. So Kinds of Kindness does make sense as a picture nominee. And then Late Night with the Devil, this is the one where I'm like, are they going to go for it? But I think they will. I think they like genre, as when you have limited appeal, you go for the movies that are the most talked about and the most liked, and this was one of the most talked about, liked movies of the year so far. And for that number 10 slot, I decided to go with Hundreds of Beavers. Now, this is just, again, most talked about. It's very small, and it's certainly not for everybody, but I think people are really, really impressed with just how unique it is and the commitment to the bit, and so I do think it should just barely squeak on. But my number 11 is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because sometimes they will go for something a bit more mainstream, and even though that didn't really get the best reviews, I do think it might be a solid contender. I almost had it on, but I'm just not sure which one to bump off. And there's not a whole lot to say after that, so I'll go on to director, where I'm going to justify some of my claims and go a little bit more in depth with some of these movies. Denis Villeneuve obviously is in front, and Guadagnino and Miller make sense. Now, Yorgos Lanthimos, maybe it might seem high to put it at 4, but I'm not really sure. As you'll see, it's not really the strongest director lineup. And I do think Lanthimos is coming off of a high with Poor Things. And I also think Kinds of Kindness would have been one of the last things that voters saw. And so I think that should help it. Kinds of Kindness is not, it's not like it's getting bad reviews. It's just people like, oh, this isn't the kind of awards friendliness that Poor Things and The Favorite were. But I do think people will want to throw it a bone because of the cast and because of Lanthimos, and he's in a really good place right now. And I decided to put Jane Schoenbrun in the number 5 slot, just because people are really, really hyped about that vision. But Hundreds of Beavers also has a really unique vision, and so I do think it could come down to one of those, or Alex Garland if they want to go a little bit more mainstream. So Best Actress, Zendaya I think is a clear frontrunner for challengers, and then it gets a little tricky. I think Dunst and Anya Taylor-Joy are both relatively safe, but I really struggled with the last 2 slots. I almost had Lupita Nyong'o in there, and then I chickened out at the last second because I don't know how many reviews are going to be really singling out that performance. And I do think both Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone are coming off of a career high with them both competing for the Oscar last year. So I could see both Stone and Gladstone getting sort of an encore nomination, a victory lap, as it were, after the successful year that they just had. But I do worry with Fancy Dance how many people will have seen it in time. So Best Actor, I have Glenn Powell and Timothée Chalamet in the top 2 slots. I think those should be locks. And then I really don't know. Plemons, probably not, but he did win Best Actor at Cannes, and I think the movie is hitting at the right time. This is, again, Kinds of Kindness is not a movie that I think is going to do well at the Oscars. I think people will have forgotten about it by then, but I think it's hitting at just the right moment that it should be solidly in there. And then Justice Smith, I think, is getting really good notices for I Saw the TV Glow, and I just sort of decided to put David Dastmalchian in the last slot. But again, there are some celebrities here, Gosling, Gyllenhaal, and Patel, that are like well-known, respected actors that could show up even if the performance itself is not really that acclaimed. We will just have to wait and see. And I will say, I'll get to the challengers' boys when I get to supporting actor, but if they decide to campaign both of them in lead actor, there is room for them. So we will just have to wait and see with that. Supporting actress, I honestly think, is the weakest of the 5 acting categories here. None of these feel like they have any realistic play for the Oscar. I have Ferguson at number 1, but she's a weak one, but everyone else behind her is also weak. Kaylee Spaney, Laura Linney, Andrea Arjona. I debated Zendaya, like, should I give him the double nomination? And then I'm like, oh no, she's loved. It makes sense for her to get the double nomination. Almost had Bridget Lundy Payne in there, but I just don't know. Some of these, like, you don't know whether they're really going to go for the indies or they're really going to go for the mainstream popular ones. It does seem to vary year to year. But this, I do think they like the mainstream popular movies more than your typical award show. That sounds weird, because it's just ranking the movies in the first half of the year. So, like, most of these movies are probably going to get forgotten about by the time you get to the end of the year, so it doesn't really matter. Like I said at the top of the video, this isn't like any sort of impressive precursor, but it's just sort of a nice, fun thing to do. So sometimes people can get just a nice, fun nomination that's not going to do anything, but hey, it's nice to give that performance or film a shout out. Now, in contrast to supporting actress, supporting actor is actually quite strong. And I have Butler, Hemsworth, and Plemons in Civil War. Oddly enough, I have both Jesse Plemons and Zendaya getting in for a lead and supporting. But I made the decision to put Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist in here. And for the record, I do believe that Challengers is a movie with 3 leads. Like, the movie is very much centered around all 3 of those characters. And so it does feel weird to put O'Connor and Feist in supporting, and maybe I could be proven wrong. If they nominate O'Connor and Feist in lead, as I said earlier, there's certainly room. So that would be a great show of support, but so many studios are hesitant to admit that a movie can have more than 1 lead of the same gender. Nevertheless, 3 leads in 1 movie. And I think between O'Connor and Feist, I really couldn't put one of them ahead of the other and say one is a lead and the other is supporting. That wouldn't make sense. I think Zendaya is the lead of the movie, at least she's seen as the lead of the movie, given the way the movie was marketed. And so it would make sense to put O'Connor and Feist together, and I'd love to see them show up in lead, but as of right now, I have them in supporting. Best Screenplay. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. I do think Dune and Challengers are very likely. Hitman, yeah, that's probably getting on. I think people like Linklater and people like the dialogue and style of that movie, and the climax is really clever. And then Inside Out 2, I really debated it, but they do really like animated movies, and they gave Mitchell vs. Machine the win for Screenplay, so I think it should be safe to get on. It feels weird to have Kinds of Kindness there, but I'm not really sure what else to put. Like, a lot of these other movies are very showy directorially, or showy with an actor sense, but not really showy when it comes to writing. And so I reluctantly have Kinds of Kindness here because Lanthimos is a big name, and even though people are saying, oh, this isn't an awards contender, and this is a throwback to his other types of movies, those other types of movies do have a fandom. And I think maybe it's possible that fandom might have expanded a little bit since Poor Things really took off. Not to say that I think it's any top kind of awards contender, but I do think it's going to do decently well here. And now we get to the categories that they don't have at the Oscars, starting with Best Stunts. Hopefully this category gets added at the Oscars soon. I think this is actually the only category, oh no, lead actor, but it's a category where I don't have Dune Part 2 at number 1, simply because The Fall Guy is so heavily based around stunts, and I do think that's going to get nominated and potentially win here. And yeah, there's some solid movies in here, Furiosa, Monkey Man. I think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I kind of debated it because it could be Roadhouse instead, but I think the mocap in that should carry a little bit more. I don't know. I do think it's tough, but there's certainly enough solid contenders, even from just the first half of the year, to justify having this category and to justify rallying the call for this category to be added at the Oscars. Best Horror Film. Okay, so Late Night with the Devil, Quiet Place Day 1, Immaculate, The First Omen. The top 2 I think are really solid, definitely getting on. The bottom 2, they're solid enough. They should be safe. And then I saw the TV Glow in the middle because I don't know whether they're going to consider it a horror movie. I've heard that it can kind of defy genre description, but it feels very horror. It feels horror adjacent, and I hope they're going to count it, just so they can give it that one additional nomination. And looking at the first half of the year, looking at 6 through 10, I don't, like, it's not a super compelling list of horror movies. Best Indie Film, though, I saw the TV Glow is going to have no problem getting nominated here, and it might be an interesting battle between that and Hundreds of Beavers for the win. And some of these movies, The Bike Riders is one that I had on, but I don't know if it really counts. Same with Suncoast. I'm like, at what point is it considered an indie movie? I didn't look up the exact budget of these. We don't really know. And then the last category is Most Anticipated Film for the second half of 2024. I have Joker, Folly I Do, Deadpool and Wolverine, Wicked, Gladiator 2, and Beetlejuice. It's actually not like a super compelling. Like this time last year, we had Oppenheimer, Barbie, and Killers of the Flower Moon to look forward to, And so, yeah, a lot of these are more commercial plays as opposed to awards plays. But yeah, I have Sing Sing on there because I'm like, I know that's going to be an awards play, so people should be looking forward to it. But are people looking forward to it? Is this more mainstream? I I don't really know. I don't really know what this is going to look like. Uh, yeah, so not much to add on that. Funny, am I going to do a video breaking down the nominations? Probably not. I think I'm just going to wait till nominations and then wins, and then break it down a little bit for you. And then probably right after that, do a July Oscar predictions update. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.